A new inquiry into online abuse follows more than 133,000 people signing Bobby Norris's petition to hold online trolls accountable for their online abuse via their IP address, as well as other petitions relating to this issue. So we're really pleased to welcome Bobby here today to give us evidence. But I also just wanted to say that I think it's particularly appropriate that we're holding this session today during Mental Health Awareness Week, because the impact of social media use and the experience of negative content online on mental health is well known. And as more and more people are spending more of their lives and social lives online, particularly during this COVID-19 crisis, the pressures and the imperative to do something about it is greater than ever. So before we go to questions, I just wanted to give Bobby the opportunity to introduce himself.
Hi, thank you everyone to start with for being here and taking time to address this. It's something that's so close to my heart. This is actually my second petition. I did come into Parliament and my previous petition was held for debate, and that was specifically surrounding homophobia online. I've seen such an increase in online abuse, trolling, especially since lockdown, and since speaking about it to my fans and followers on social media, I'm so aware that it's not just me and people in the public eye going through it. And yeah, that is so important for me to be addressing this today.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Bobby. So we've got a number of questions that we're going to put to you, but obviously just come in at any point and this is your opportunity to set out your reasons for the petition and your thoughts on this subject. So, you know, if you want to come in at any point, do just say, but I'll go to Elliot first, who's got some questions for you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Bobby, so much for coming and speaking to us today. I think I agree with you, Chair, that this is very topical at the moment. It's something that's very in the forefront of minds of members, I think. We all experience abuse on our social medias as well. I received homophobic abuse during the campaign, so it's something I think really timely to be talking about. And I think leading on from what you just said, Bobby, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about why you started this petition and why you think it's important to hold people accountable for what they say online.
Absolutely. So firstly, I think I've become immune almost to the online hatred and homophobia, which in itself is devastating that I've had to build an immunity to it. I've been on a TV show for 9 years, and whenever I experience any kind of online hate, it is always to do with my sexuality. As a gay man of 33, I think I've built up quite a thick skin to that. So to me, I'm very aware that I do have a strength. That's not to say it doesn't hurt, and it's certainly not right, but I've built up this immunity. I'm very aware, though, that 14-year-old Bobby wouldn't have had that strength. And I hear from so many people, whether that's parents or people suffering themselves, saying, how is it 2020 or 2019 and we're still having to face this and nothing's being done about it? We've come such a long way in the grand scheme of things in terms of homophobia, and I don't want to take away from that. It's amazing where we've come, but we've still got a long way to go. And I believe that there's still this thing in people's minds that they think what they say online doesn't matter. It's not the same as saying something to someone's face, but it is. And there's a misconception that things can just be banter, as people like to call it. It isn't. And I can't stress home enough to every single person on my platforms and whenever I've spoke about it on public forums, whether that's been news, TV shows, etc. Think before you type, and what you wouldn't say to someone's face, don't feel that's all right to say online. Whatever anyone does for a living, whether you're in TV, music, or not, it doesn't really matter. No one should have to experience this. And the one thing I found at first a lot of people would come back and say is, just don't look at it, delete social media. Well, firstly to that, that's letting the troll get away with it, and they're winning. Why should I have to come away, or anyone else have to come away from their social media platforms because they're the victim of online abuse? To me, I just don't see how that is ever going to work going forward. The genie's out the bottle with social media, And I'm not here to bash social media. I love it. And 95% of it is an amazing tool. You can connect with people around the world, friends, family. And when used in the right way, it's amazing. And especially during lockdown, I'm so glad that we have technology, that we can do this today, that we've been able to connect with friends and family while self-isolation. But there is a very dark side to social media as well. And when I hear from people that are self-harming, and I hear stories of people taking their own lives, I wanted to use my platform and my voice to make a change.
Fantastic. And thank you for that, Bobby. And I think you've touched on this already, but just to elaborate a little bit, is it safe to say that you feel that the current law in this country, but also the regulations by which social media platforms operate, aren't effective enough to deal with this problem as they are?
Absolutely. For me, I still can't understand how social media platforms, which have tens of millions, maybe billions of users globally, require so little information. If I was to go to a supermarket and sign up for a reward card, I would have to give more information in a supermarket than I have to access the internet, which is in everybody's houses, in everybody's pockets on their phones, whether that's, it's everywhere, social media. That's never going away. And how nothing's caught up, I seem, in my opinion, I feel like the law hasn't had a chance to keep up with how big social media has become relatively soon. And from my understanding, currently, in order for something to be illegal under the Communications Act, it has to be grossly offensive. However, I question that the threshold needs to be looked at and modified with that, because what myself and thousands or millions of people are finding offensives here, but if the threshold's here, where are we ever going to go with it?
Yeah, I'd love to come back to this point about thresholds and about exactly what needs to be done. But I know a couple of my colleagues want to come in first, so I'd love to come back to that point. Thank you, Bobby.
So, Kerry, I think you had a question to ask. Andrew, do you unmute Kerry? You're not pressing anything, Kerry, no? Is it possible to unmute Kerry? Well, Elliot, do you want to carry on with yours and then we'll come back to you, Kerry? Hopefully they'll be able to sort it.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Chair. So if we can then go back to the petition, Bobby, it asks that people's IP addresses be blocked from accessing social media. What do you think, leading on from what we were just talking about, the test should be as to whether or not someone should have their account blocked? What kind of, the IP address blocked, what kind of tests or things should social media companies or the law be looking to in order to make sure that someone can't access social media in those circumstances?
I believe that trolling is abuse and that the content is often a hate crime. So whether that's homophobia, racism, or anything that is a hate crime offline should be online. So for me, the first thing, as well as the IP being blocked and being flagged up that someone's done this before, because you do get full-time trolls. And a lot of people say, just block them. But because it's so easy to start a new account, because no ID is necessary to get a social media account, no sooner have you blocked them, they've gone back online within 5 minutes and started another one, and they're not being held accountable. And you're forever chasing your tail because you're blocking and they're opening them literally within minutes. So for me, as well as the IP address being blocked and flagged up that someone has done this previously and have that privilege of having their social media platform revoked from them, I would say all social media accounts need to give some form of ID. So I don't quite know how exactly, whether that be a national insurance number, a passport number. Certainly, I believe that more information is needed from social media users, because if everybody was more accountable for what they say and they knew that their details was there for someone to see, especially when it comes to the level of threats, which I'll touch upon later, which I've been receiving almost daily during the lockdown. I believe literally overnight we would see a massive decrease in online hate and trolling if people knew that they was traceable and that their actions would have repercussions.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and I think a lot of people think we'd have to be heartless not to sympathise with receiving death threats. But I think I'd like to delve a little bit deeper into the actual content that we're talking about. So I don't think anyone wouldn't condemn death threats being removed from social media and the people who say them being stopped from using it. But what would you say is the line in terms of where people can take what they say on social media before it becomes something that they should be banned from social media for? Because there's a big debate, as I'm sure you're aware, about obviously free speech and about how people are allowed to use online platforms. Where is the line? Is it what is already criminal in terms of homophobic abuse, racist abuse, etc.? Or is it wider than that? Should we be looking to expand what is unacceptable and make sure it doesn't appear on social media?
Absolutely. That's one of the things I heard when starting my original petition was, is that not taking away people's freedom of speech? Now, I'm certainly not here to take that away. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, and I'm a big believer that you should have your opinions. Of course you should. We all have opinions. But then there's going a level above that. And this isn't something as little as, and again, there has to be a cap on it. So if someone messages you, I don't like your hair today, I don't like your suit, them jeans don't look good on you. Opinions, that's fine. When something crosses into what would be illegal offline, I generally believe that needs to be looked at. A crime online should be the same offline, and I believe this is what needs to be acknowledged by people. And I also think from a young age, I know slightly off topic here, education is a big part in this. Children from school age should be told how to use social media, how to use online in the right way, because education is key for this. There's going to be some people, and I'm not naive enough to think until a law's passed that anyone's going to stop this, because for some reason trolls get fun from doing what they do. And until there's repercussions for that, they will continue to do what they do. No matter what I say, I can stand on my soapbox and shout out to my followers day in, day out until I'm blue in the face. They're not going to listen to that. If anything, since starting petitions, my trolling's become so much worse, because I think I've become the man who's trying to end their fun. So even people who didn't troll me before now troll me because of these petitions and trying to make a change. Going back to your question also, it's all relative that you would know what would be acceptable to say to someone's face. So anything that would cross into a hate speech, anything that you know is detrimental to someone's mental health. Me personally, I'm not a doctor. I don't know how I would scientifically prove this, but I believe mental health is so on the increase, as is social media, that I believe there definitely has to be a connection between the two. Suicides is on the increase. We've seen people in the public eye, as well as so many people that we don't hear about, taking their own lives because of the abuse online. I've got a list of people ranging from the age of 13 onwards of people that have taken their life because they couldn't handle the online abuse they were suffering. We've also seen people in the public eye taking their own lives for one reason or another. And a lot of people were quick to criticise TV channels and production companies for that and say, well, there's not a very good duty of care there. In my opinion, as well as the duty of care, which me personally, I've always received, there needs to be a duty of care from social media and also Parliament.
Thanks for that, Bob. That's really helpful. And I think the last thing I'd really like to pick up on is whether or not this change in the law that we're asking for in terms of blocking IP addresses and stopping online harms, whether or not that is instead of or as well as stronger legal action, or do you view the legal action that can be taken against someone for what they say offline is already adequate?
I'm very aware and I'm realistic that we can't go around just using this law to every single person who sends their first initial tweet or comment or DM to somebody, because we would have to be building prisons every day to put these trolls in. There's clearly not enough place for that. It has to be looked at as harassment as well. When it's the same users that we can trace through IP addresses that are being deleted and then starting new accounts and keep coming for someone, at one point does harassment not come into place? If you was being stalked offline by someone and someone kept standing outside your house, which is also another thing that I've received, as well as thousands of people I'm sure have received, that people say they're outside your house. At what point can we say, look, enough's enough? You are day in, day out coming to that person. Their mental health can absolutely go through the roof. This has sparked my anxiety. I know it's caused a lot of people depression. So the umbrella of it all, the law has to be in place, but I think the social media platforms themselves can do more by tracing the people that are doing it and taking away their privilege of having a social media account. And that's what it should be. It should be a privilege. And if you don't use it correctly, the same as if you don't use your driving license correctly and you drink drive or whatever, you have that revoked. You should have your social media platform revoked because you're not using it appropriately.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby. And then before I bring you in, Kerry, I was just going to bring Chris in very briefly because I know he has to go as well. Sorry, Kerry.
Just a quick one. Bobby, you've been incredibly brave with what you said and the kind of doing that with a lot of people. I've been doing a lot of work on eating disorders, social media, encouraging people with eating disorders. We came to something where they banned keywords, but to get around it, they would use skinny, but rather than the I, they would put a 1 in there. If we do ban keywords, how do we get around that they don't use their numbers instead of letters and sort of that type of thing?
Did you manage to hear that, Bobby?
Only bits and bobs. I'm sorry, I didn't really hear the volume.
I think you need to be less close, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, I come in because I can't hear myself.
So I think what Chris was saying was he's done a lot of work on
eating disorders.
Eating disorders,
and
the way people get around some of the way the social media platforms do try to regulate abusive terms. They'll put a digit in to hide the fact that it's the abusive word. Is this something that you've come across and something that you think needs to be addressed?
Absolutely, and you're so right. The trolls seem to be, unfortunately, one step ahead. So whether they have to put a star or change a letter for a number, they know that you're going to know what they're implying, but it gets around that block. So this is why I feel the social media platform providers need to do more in terms of where their threshold is with what they see is acceptable. I know through myself and so many of my fans and followers' selves, when they've reported things they've gone through themselves or when I've publicly said this is what's happened and I've screen grabbed it, because when it's got so bad that I'm receiving daily death threats, I want people to know they're not alone. And in so many cases, 9 out of 10 platform providers will come back with basically it doesn't break their rules and regulations, which I question. At what point what do you have to do to break a rule or a regulation if so many of these things are still being passed and these people are still able to target people and individuals day in, day out? So whether that's words being blocked, I'm not sure how you'd get around that because of the numbers and stuff. I believe how we can overcome that is that it's a stricter process. When something is reported, somebody at these platforms can look at it, and whether it's a traffic light system, like once something's been flagged, it's a green, amber, and then red, third strike, absolute deletion.
Okay, thank you. Kerry, do you want to come in now?
Yeah, hopefully we sorted out the technical issues. I just wanted to, thanks for all that you've said so far, Bobby. I thought that was really well expressed and certainly recognised some of the things you were saying. But could you tell us of what sort of response you've had from other people? You said that the trolling had increased because of the petitions. What about people that have been on the receiving end of abuse? What sort of response have you had from them?
I have heard hundreds, maybe by now thousands of messages from people, firstly thanking me for making it such a publicly spoke about thing on my social media platforms. I believe some people still feel shame from being trolled and abused online. The same as when people are bullied. You inherit the emotion and you feel shame for that, and none of us should. And I believe with the platform and the voice I have, as someone in the public eye, it's important for me to let people know they're not alone. And the messages I've had saying, thank you so much, you've made me feel better that I'm not alone. I've not left my bedroom. I don't go to school. I don't go to work. Up until the extreme of having messages from family members that are are still living, unfortunately, whose friends, family and partners have taken their own lives because they couldn't handle it anymore. And I think this is where the education's key from a young age. The children are told how to use social media appropriately, because by the time they get to adulthood, I can only imagine how social media will have grown by then, because in my life, it's even in my 9 years in television, it's changed to a whole new thing. And as I say, it's a positive tool when used correctly. But the problem is it's not always used correctly. And until we can let people know that it's not okay, I will continue to do what I'm doing. And I've received their message from people that are thankful, that all want to show their support. I believe my initial petition received over 157,000 signatures. The recent one, 134,000 signatures. When I've gone on to various news channels, TV shows, the response I've had from people is, we're so glad you're talking about this, because this is affecting our lives, it's affecting our mental health, and it's affecting people's self-esteem. So for me, I know I'm not the only one, and it's not for me that I'm doing any of this. This is for people's children and the next generation, and also for adults that don't have the thick enough skin to take it, because you can handle so much. And if you get something relentlessly over and over and over again, and I know a lot of my comments since lockdown, I've created an Instagram, like a celebrity interview platform, basically called Get Gobby with Bobby. And every time I'm interviewing a celebrity, I'll have trolls in there saying, after this live, go and hang yourself. Now, thankfully, I'm strong enough that I won't do that. There's some people whose mental health might not be stable enough that after the 5th or 6th time of being told to hang themselves, do act on that and do hang themselves or take their own life. And for me, if people are losing their lives due to something that in theory can be changed relatively quickly, and something that I'm sure all of us here know we have to address, why would we not do that? Why would I not stand on a soapbox and say, let's make change? Because people shouldn't be losing their lives, taking their lives, or locking themselves in their house and their bedrooms.
You've got a public platform, you've got lots of fans and followers, you can be on the media talking about this. Can you say why you felt it was important to go down the petition route? This is your second petition. What led you to think that was a way that you wanted to pursue this cause?
Absolutely. I know I could have just sat on my social media talking about my experience, but the reality is that wouldn't have made change, and I want to make change. And I'm in a privileged situation and position that I do have a public profile, I do have a voice, and I want to use that for good. I want to help people that message me that I know are going through this from every walk of life. Trolling and online abuse does not come down to one person's job, age, sexuality. There are so many, tens of thousands of people suffering daily for all different reasons. And for me to use my voice down the petition route, because I believe that's the best way of making change and helping the generation of tomorrow to not have to experience this.
And can you say, is there anything else that you've done other than the petitions route and talking about this and social media? Is there other things that you've done, or perhaps that other people have done? Like you talked about the importance of education, so maybe people going into schools or directly contacting some of the social media providers. Are there other ways in which we can make sure that this message is amplified?
Absolutely. So last year I went to Southend College and gave a speech about my experience and to let students know that they're not alone. That 82% of 13 to 18-year-olds have been exposed to online hate, and 1 in 5 12 to 15-year-olds experience online bullying. Them figures are astronomical, and it's devastating that people of that age and that severity of number are going through this. So I wanted to go to the college and let them know, I suffer with it. This is what I'm going through. We can't let these people win. We can't let the trolls win. And that's something I continue to do. Once we're out of the lockdown and hopefully, thankfully, we get the COVID-19 sorted and we're able to get out and about, I'd love to tour more. I want to go to schools. I want to go to colleges, because I'm a massive believer that we have to nip this in the bud from education age. No child is born a troll. They just inherit that that's acceptable to do because there's no repercussions yet. If you're taught from a young age that's not, and you're taught how to use the internet appropriately, that's the way we're going to overcome it. When I was a child, we didn't have social media, but you can go to any supermarket, any shopping centre and see some children from the age of 2 or 3 will be holding a tablet or their parents' phone, whether that's playing a game, whether that's watching films or cartoons. Children can use technology now. And for all its amazing qualities that technology brings, I think we're all aware, especially during this speech and after, that there is that dark side. And to have children exposed to that when they're so impressionable is beyond worrying.
Thank you, Kerry. I was going to bring Nick in very briefly to ask a question. Nick Fletcher.
All right, there you go. Hello there. Yes, thank you for coming in. It's good to see you and talk to you. Just a question. Well, 2 questions quickly. Why do you think people think it is okay to behave like this? I know many, well, I can see what appear to be many decent people, and they don't hide behind an IP address. They just do think it's okay to abuse people online and say awful things about them, which I find quite disturbing. And it's not necessarily any demographic, young or old. It can be anybody. They seem to sit behind a screen and think it's okay to say quite unkind things. And do you think a campaign about this, saying that you're speaking about somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's partner, that it is actually somebody who somebody really cares about? It's not just a person, because I think I can understand where you're coming from. It's totally, it's just, and it's not just you either. If somebody said something awful about me, then I know members of my family will be really, really upset about that, and it will probably affect them more than me. What do you think to that?
Massively. There seems to be a disconnect between what people think is acceptable online, and I believe that 9 out of 10 people wouldn't say half of the stuff they think is acceptable to someone's face as they do online. Whether that's the security and the bravery of being behind a device, I don't know, or whether it's just that the education and the knowledge isn't there yet, that is still not acceptable. I genuinely believe people think they can right away send them things off, fire off their abuse, their comments, and that it has no effect on anyone. People aren't immune to this abuse, and let's face it, that's what it is. Whether you're in the public eye or not, everyone is human. Everyone has feelings. Everyone has emotions, and people need to realise that what you say online is exactly the same as someone's face.
I would say cowardice, wouldn't you? That they're doing that behind there. Not, they really are cowards, aren't they?
Absolutely. Like, I imagine that most of these people would smile at you in the street, but whilst online, they think it's acceptable to say, I'm outside your house, I'm going to throw acid in your face, I'm going to assault you with an 11-inch machete. The list goes on. I'm going to kill you, I'm going to set fire to you. Like, it's horrific what people are going through. No one could possibly be immune to that and it not affect them some way, somehow, even with a thick skin. And the point you made is so right. And I always say this when I do videos and I post them on my social media platforms. Someone is someone's parent, child, brother, sister, friend. If that was happening to anyone you know, how would that make you feel? And I believe there's a misconception that all trolls are young. They're really not. Sometimes you'll click on their profile and it will say in the bio, proud father or mother of 2, proud grandfather. And I think, gosh, if someone's done that to your grandchild or your child, how would that make you feel? Or make them feel?
Exactly right, yes.
Yeah. So I was just going to, I mean, apart from anything else as well, the internet is such an amazing world of wonder, and all of the trolling that has become so commonplace on it makes it an unpleasant place to be. And I think that's one of the big challenges that we face, that we can be able to enjoy being on the internet and as you say, be able to feel confident about our children and our grandchildren being in a happy place on the internet. And too often it's an unhappy place, which you've described really powerfully this morning. And it was just to say, because we're running out of time now, but what a powerful advocate you are for making the internet a safer and more enjoyable place to be. But also that this is just the beginning. We are going to have a number of sessions to hold the public, to sort of build public interest, and also obviously present to the government what can be done about this based on the evidence that you've given, and also from all the petitioners that are clearly supporting you all the way in this. And so as this progresses, our inquiry, I just thought it'd be helpful if you could tell us what things you would like to see us asking experts, asking the social media platform, and asking of government, if you want to give us that now.
Absolutely. I'd like to know from social media platform providers, why still at this point into social media, as big as the beast is, why ID isn't required from any user? When, as I say, referring back to the supermarket reward card scheme, you give more information to a supermarket than you do to a social media account. It just makes no sense. That in itself, we would see a decrease, I literally believe, overnight, because people would know, actually, they know who I am. This isn't just an email account. They would know more details. They would know who you are, and you'd be held more accountable. Technology side, I'd like to know how it can be looked at to start blocking IP addresses, whether we do the traffic light system or look at a way that after once, after twice, certainly when it gets to a point that you're harassing someone daily, how we go about blocking that IP address, whether that be a mobile device or a home broadband provider. Government-wise, again, I'm thankful so much that you've all taken the time to be here today and that we're talking about it. And it's amazing, a step forward for me that you've acknowledged that something needs to happen. I'm grateful for that. I'm looking forward to seeing where this progresses. I'd like to know, law-wise, though, what we do moving forward to making people held more accountable for their online actions.
Brilliant, thank you. So as I say, this is just the beginning. You've done so powerfully set out the problem, and I think, you know, from here we need to take it forward in our inquiry to try and come up with some solutions to make this better for you, for public figures, but for everybody out there who's using social media and who's on the internet, and all those people that you have advocated so powerfully for today. So just thanks so much for your time, and obviously we'll continue to work together on this into the future. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks. And also, if there's anything further that you want to add, just get in touch with us and we can incorporate it within our inquiry.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Order, order.
The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended.